On March 7, 2019, a foreboding discovery was made by the local authorities in the barren expanse of the Nevada desert. The police received an urgent call from a man who had stumbled upon an abandoned car in a desolate part of the Nevada desert. As the law enforcement officers arrived, they noticed the car's broken window and unlocked doors. Although it seemed empty at first, a putrid smell was coming from the trunk. When they opened it, they found the lifeless body of Thomas Burchard, a 71-year-old Californian psychiatrist who was widely respected and admired. Thomas Burchard was a kind and compassionate person, especially toward his patients. He was highly respected in his personal life, but unfortunately, despite having a partner, he never had any children. To fill this void, he dedicated himself to helping young people. Thomas was a magic enthusiast and was part of a highly exclusive private club called the Magic Castle. He often used magic tricks to bring a smile to the faces of his young patients. One of his favorite tricks was to transform a $1 bill into a $100 bill, and he enjoyed seeing the happiness it brought to his patients. When he learned that some of their families were experiencing financial difficulties, he even gave them the $100 bill. These small acts of kindness made him a beloved and respected physician, and he had become a fixture in the lives of his patients over the years. Thomas was surrounded by several single women who were struggling in their lives. Among them were drug addicts and prostitutes. Touched by their difficult situations, Thomas generously offered them help, including financial aid. However, in December 2000, when he was 52 years old, his wife discovered that he was in contact with young women on the internet. She also found out that he was meeting some of them and giving them money. Thus, she divorced him. At first glance, it may seem like these relationships were of a sexual nature, but Thomas denied any wrongdoing and maintained that he was simply trying to assist these women in need. In an effort to defend himself, Thomas explained that he was simply helping young women in need and that his actions have been misconstrued. In 2002, while on a trip to Las Vegas with a group of friends, Thomas met Judy, a 42-year-old mother of 4 who, like him, was divorced. They quickly discovered they had much in common, including a shared abstinence from alcohol. During their stay, they spent time together by the pool, attended shows, and promised to see each other again. Judy was smitten with Thomas and soon moved to Salinas, California, to be with him. They lived together in a rural home surrounded by animals, and Judy and her children were happy there. Thomas had never had a family before and blossomed in his new role. He presented his relationships with young women to Judy in the same way he did to his ex-wife, as purely charitable gestures. Judy accepted this and was touched by Thomas's generosity and proved to be more tolerant than his previous spouse. In 2017, Thomas met a 24-year-old woman named Kelsey Turner on social media. Kelsey was born on May 5, 1993, in Norfolk, Virginia. When she was 22, she moved to California in pursuit of a modeling career. She was also known as Bad Barbie on social media, where she showcased her appearance, which was highly coveted in the industry. She had posed for famous magazines such as Playboy and Maxim, but without really succeeding in making it big. She had some notoriety on social networks, particularly on Instagram, where she had about 100,000 followers. But behind the parties with her friends in nightclubs and the glamorous and sexy image she displayed on social media, the reality was somewhat different. She was only 24 years old and already a mother of 2 children, a girl and a boy whom she had with 2 different men. At 17, she became pregnant with her first boyfriend, but very soon after the birth of her daughter, they split up. The following year, she married another man in 2014 with whom she had a little boy before divorcing. As a 24-year-old single mother of 2 children from different fathers, Kelsey found herself deeply in debt and without a work contract, on the brink of homelessness. She told Thomas how tough was her life and how she was deeply in debt and didn't have a work contract. At first, he proposed to take the lease in his name to help her out, and she and her children moved into a house that cost $3,200 per month. Even though at first it was agreed that Thomas would only take care of the lease. From the first month, he also paid the rent, and he did the same for a year. Nothing was abnormal for him, he just wanted to help her change her life. During that year, he paid the rent for Kelsey's house, but he also gave her money regularly. She was not the only young woman that Thomas helped. There were about a dozen who benefited from the generosity of the 71-year-old psychiatrist. However, none of them asked him for as much money, nor did they ask for a rent of $2,000 to $4,000 per week. Judy was aware that Thomas helped several young women, but he didn't hide it from her. As the months went by, she realized that despite the large sums of money that Thomas gave her to improve her family life and raise her children, their relationship seemed just as precarious. In fact, she kept asking for more and more, but on social media, she only displayed heavily drinking parties with her friends. Judy concluded that Kelsey was exploiting Thomas's generosity and had no intention of changing her expensive lifestyle. In any case, Thomas had always maintained the same version of events. Having been touched by difficult life experiences, he liked helping others. She, on her side, had always presented Thomas as a kind psychiatrist who had a crush on her and was willing to do anything to help her. Nonetheless, Judy expressed her doubts about the young mother to her partner. She put more and more pressure on him to stop supporting the young woman. For over a year, Thomas had given her around $300,000. He paid her rent, car payments, and gave her money every week. But she, on her part, had done nothing but spend this money recklessly. If she were honest and truly wanted to stabilize her situation and that of her children with such a sum, she would have already done so. After Judy made him realize that, Thomas decided to distance himself from her and stop paying her rent. He then told her landlord that he would only pay her rent for the next 3 months, after which the young woman would have to take over herself. Kelsey did not take this well. Losing her main source of income was unacceptable for her. She was furious with Thomas, but more importantly, thinking that Judy was behind all of this, she sent him a threatening message saying that she would kill her. She wrote that the white trash, because that is what she nicknamed her, was now on her list. If she is evicted because of her, she would kill her. Seeing that she was losing her grip on Thomas, she began to threaten him and blackmail him. She threatened to contact the police, saying that Thomas was a pedophile. She threatened to ruin his reputation and his career. Thomas was afraid. He knew that rumors spread quickly, and a false rumor like this could ruin his life. It was then that she revealed her dark side, but Thomas, supported by Judy, held on. He stopped paying her rent, and a few months later, in November 2018, she was evicted from her home. But she maintained her hold and her threats on the doctor, who then agreed to give her money one last time to get rid of her for good. She explained to him that she risked losing custody of her eldest daughter and she wanted to leave. In December 2018, she moved in Nevada, Las Vegas. Thomas stayed away during this time, and the young woman wasted no time. Shortly after arriving in Nevada, she met a Greek man. Just after Christmas, he moved in with her, but the relationship was extremely tumultuous. The police intervened several times at Kelsey's home, and finally, Greg was arrested and imprisoned for violence. A few weeks later, in early February 2019, she found a new boyfriend, John Logan Kenninson, who was even less recommendable than her ex. He had just gotten out of prison after 6 months of detention for controlled substance distribution. He also moved in with Kelsey very quickly. At that time, from February 8th to 18th, Thomas went to Las Vegas for a medical conference, and he did something crazy. He contacted Kelsey, and they even met up, despite the threats and blackmail. Thomas had a hard time keeping his distance from her and fell back into her clutches a few days after returning to California. Kelsey sent him a distress message saying that her boyfriend was hitting her and that she needed him for herself and her son. Thomas, deeply moved by this call, decided to go and see what was going on. However, after everything that had happened with Kelsey, he couldn't tell the truth to Judy. He told her that he was going to see a magic show. On March 1st, 2019, he flew to Las Vegas to meet Kelsey once again, and the young woman was getting ready to welcome him. Kelsey was living with her son and boyfriend and had recently welcomed Diana Pina, a 30-year-old waitress whom she had just met, to stay in an upstairs room without charging her any rent. In exchange, she looked after Kelsey's son when needed. She also shared the house with another tenant, a boy named Jeremy, who occupied a room on the ground floor. When she introduced Thomas as a kind benefactor who had a crush on her, her roommates immediately thought the relationship was weird. However, Kelsey said there was nothing between them and he was just an extremely generous person. At first, everything seemed to be going well as Thomas was a kind man. However, things took a turn for the worse on the first night around 2 a.m. when Jeremy's girlfriend arrived at the house. So far, nothing dramatic had happened, but the young woman was a pretty blonde and somewhat drunk, immediately hit it off with Thomas, who, as we know, appreciated a pretty young woman. This closeness did not please Kelsey, who saw her as a rival who could potentially take her generous benefactor away from her. In the evening, Thomas and the young woman left together in a car to go to a store. Since Thomas did not drink, he offered to drive. Kelsey then started accusing Jeremy's girlfriend of wanting to separate her from Thomas. But as soon as his girlfriend returned, the couple packed their things and left the house to escape this tense situation. Thomas also sent a message to Judy to tell her that he would take advantage of this trip to clear things up because he believed she was a liar and he wanted to know the truth. He informed her that he would stay for the weekend and only return on March 4th, 1 day later. Judy was shocked and very worried about Thomas because she knew the young woman was cruel, and Thomas could be weak when faced with her. She begged him to come back and not see her. She believed that the young woman was unstable and very dangerous, but her efforts were in vain. Unfortunately, this was the last time she heard from him. After this message, Thomas did not respond to her for several days. She tried to call him, but his phone was off. Judy had a bad feeling about her partner and feared that something serious had happened to him, especially since Thomas had been showing signs of senile dementia for some time, often losing his car in parking lots and forgetting where he parked it. He lost a lot of small things, but what was really worrying was that he had not recognized Judy's daughter in recent times, and on one occasion he couldn't find his way home. Also, Thomas was used to carrying a large sum of cash, about $1,000, as well as a small notebook in which he noted everything he was forgetting, including all his passwords. Judy was worried that he may have been the victim of an unfortunate encounter or may have gotten lost. For 3 days, she contacted the police to express her concerns. She told them that Thomas went to see Kelsey and she gave them the address of her house. She explained how worried she was because the young woman had already shown herself to be extremely bad and had not stopped trying to take advantage of her partner's generosity. She was certain that something serious had happened, especially since she had not heard from Thomas since the day he was supposed to return. The police then went to Kelsey's house to see what was going on, but when they arrived, no one answered the door. The house seemed empty. They went to her house 4 times, and on the last day, they noticed that the lights were on and the blinds were up. They also saw that there was mail piled up in the mailbox and that the front door was unlocked. The officers decided to enter the house, but they did not find anyone there. However, they were struck by a strong smell of cleaning products and ammonia, which seemed suspicious. To avoid jeopardizing any possible evidence, they quickly left the house without staying for too long. They contacted the owner, who claimed not to know anything, except that the rent had been paid for the next 3 months and that Kelsey and Thomas were still missing. They decided to obtain a search warrant to legally search the house. On March 7, 2019, at around 10:50 a.m., a father and his children were driving through an isolated area of the Nevada desert when they spotted a BMW parked in a strange way. They were immediately struck by the fact that one of the windows was broken. They decided to contact the police to report this abandoned car. When the officers arrived, they quickly observed a broken window and unlocked doors. They opened the car, started the engine, and unlocked the trunk. The car was filled with various clothes. According to investigators, it was the nauseating smell emanating from the trunk that caught their attention. After moving a white and blue towel, they discovered with horror a partially clothed human body with trauma evident. The forensic team was called in to assist, and the BMW was thoroughly examined. Inside the car, they found several latex gloves and traces that suggested someone had attempted to clean the vehicle of evidence. Bloodstains were found on the driver's side and the back seat, but the evidence did not reveal precisely what had happened. The victim was apparently attacked inside the car and then placed in the trunk. The autopsy revealed that the body belonged to a man of a certain age who had suffered severe head trauma, likely from being repeatedly struck with an unidentified object. The victim had bruises, cuts, and scrapes on his face, neck, arms, and chest, and a part of his ear seemed to be missing. He also had numerous defensive wounds and had died from blunt force trauma to the head. The owner of the car was quickly identified as Kelsey Turner. The link between the disappearance of Thomas and the discovery of the body was established, and the investigators went to Kelsey's home with a warrant. They found several pieces of evidence, including blue and white towels identical to those found in the car, bloodstains on a broken door upstairs, and cleaning products throughout the house. It appeared as though someone had attempted to clean up bloodstains on the floor. On March 15, 2019, an arrest warrant was issued for Kelsey. 2 weeks later, she was arrested by FBI agents in California, where she was found with her son. The boy was placed in foster care, and Kelsey was charged with murder. Her boyfriend, John, was also arrested after a few days. Diana, Kelsey's roommate, voluntarily went to the police with her lawyer to tell them everything she knew about the crime in exchange for a deal with the prosecutor. This is what she told them about that horrific evening. It was the second night that things turned into horror. That night, Diana was working as usual at a palace in Vegas where she worked as a bartender. At the end of her shift, Thomas and Kelsey came to pick her up by car. On the way back, it was Thomas who was driving, but unfortunately took the wrong turn and got lost. Kelsey then took Thomas's phone to use the GPS and took the opportunity to snoop around in his texts. She then found explicit photos of her mother, Samantha, in Thomas's phone. It turned out Thomas had been giving Kelsey's mom money as well after she too had contacted him with her sob stories and begging for his help. When she came across these messages, she became enraged. While Thomas was driving, she had a nervous breakdown and started insulting and hitting him. Despite the young woman's crisis, the psychiatrist managed to bring everyone back home safely. However, the young woman couldn't calm down. She screamed, insulted, and threatened Thomas to reveal everything and ruin his career and reputation. Powerless and helpless in the face of her anger, he went into her son's room. Fortunately, her son wasn't there that night. He was being taken care of by a friend. But Kelsey couldn't calm down or regain any composure. Several times, she went to Thomas and threatened him again and again. She wanted him to pay to buy her silence. Eventually, he got angry too and slammed the door shut and locked it. Unfortunately for him, John, Kelsey's boyfriend, didn't like that at all. As soon as he saw it, everything took on a frightening proportion. Furious, he grabbed a baseball bat, rushed to the locked bedroom door, and broke it down with a big kick. The scene turned into horror when Diana involuntarily saw John armed with the bat. She testified that she did not really see the blow, but as she rushed into the room, she heard a loud noise and found the 71-year-old man lying on the floor completely stunned. She immediately noticed that he had a large red-purple bruise on his head. After this first extremely violent blow, John and Kelsey turned tail, leaving the poor psychiatrist completely stunned on the floor. Diana then did what she could to help the old man. She helped him regain consciousness, gave him a glass of water, and tried to comfort him with words. But Thomas was literally in shock. Diana was aware that he needed medical attention, so she helped him get up and go down to the garage where the car was parked. Since she did not know how to drive and Thomas was not able to, she waited for either Kelsey or John to come and drive them to the hospital. However, the couple had no intention to. Thomas, who was still groggy, told her that they would probably kill him. John and Kelsey then went to the garage and Kelsey told Diana that they would go to the hospital when all traces of the attack had been cleaned up and not before. Frantic, Diana returned to the house to begin cleaning up. Diana heard a violent argument between Thomas and the couple. She then heard Kelsey ask John to knock Thomas out. She rushed to the garage to try to stop them. Unfortunately, as she arrived at the garage door, she realized that it was too late. She was completely stunned and didn't know what to do. She started crying, and Kelsey ordered her to go back upstairs and clean up, which she did. The first time the police came to the house to check on Thomas's welfare, she was actually present but, panicked, she did not answer. The next day, Kelsey drove to an abandoned desert where she left the car with Thomas's body in it. She was arrested a few days later, on March 21st. Both John and Kelsey were charged with murder and pleaded not guilty. Diana, who had been able to get out on bail due to her cooperation, accused them of being accomplices to the murder during the trial. Kelsey and John's lawyers, on the other hand, tried to attack and discredit Diane's testimony. During the trial, Kelsey appeared in very loose prison clothing. She was actually pregnant with her third child, and the father was unknown. A few weeks later, at the beginning of June, John changed his mind and decided to plead guilty to second-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder. He was sentenced to 18 to 45 years in prison. Kelsey, on the other hand, maintained her plea of not guilty, and her trial was set for November 2022. Just before her trial, she also pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and was sentenced to 10 to 25 years in prison. She gave birth to a baby girl who was immediately moved to social services. Kelsey was a pathological liar and she was used to taking money from Thomas. She couldn't bear the fact that Thomas didn't want to provide financial support anymore. Thus, she resorted to extreme measures such as blackmail, manipulation, and threats to make him continue funding her. She even went so far as to falsely accuse him of being a pedophile. However, these allegations were unfounded, as the police found no evidence or photos to suggest that Thomas had any attraction toward children. Although there were photos of naked women, there was nothing that indicated an interest in minors. Additionally, the police discovered evidence that Thomas and Kelsey had an intimate relationship, likely through messages or photos, but due to one of them being deceased, no trial took place and the details of the evidence were not disclosed. While some may view Thomas as being questionable, he was well liked by everyone, successful, and known for his generosity toward his loved ones. Ultimately, it's difficult to make a definitive judgment without all the facts. My thoughts go out to Judy and her children, who did their best to discourage him from reconnecting with the young woman. Additionally, I think of Kelsey's 3 children, who never had the opportunity to experience a stable and responsible mother who prioritized their well-being. I sincerely hope that all 3 children are thriving and are able to remain together and that their community can provide them with a better future. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to follow for more crime stories.